Marilyn Coohen is a longtime member of Beth Chikva Synagogue. She was executive director of Merkaz Canada and the Canadian Foundation for Masorti Judaism. She has worked as the alumni coordinator for Community Hebrew Academy of Toronto, Chad. She is past Sisterhood president, 1984 to 86. Marilyn is currently an executive member of INR, as well as International Torah Fund vice president of our region. She was a longtime synagogue board member at Beth Tikva, has sung in the choir since 1976, and is actively involved in all musical programming in the synagogue. In her spare time, Marilyn loves to dance, garden, and play golf. She has two married daughters, Naomi and Deborah, and much of her time is lovingly spent with her 5 grandchildren. Marilyn Coohen.
Thank you, Ruth. Everyone hear me? For your generous introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to bring you up to date on the latest developments related to Torah Fund. Since today is the 28th day of the counting of the Omer, it reminded me that many use this period for self-improvement, and the counting focuses us on mindfulness. This counting also reminds us that we are fast approaching the end of this year's Biachad Torah Fund campaign, which ends shortly after Shavuot. Let us be mindful of the time that is passing in these weeks to consider the impact our donations have on the ambitions of our committed students in our 5 conservative Masorti seminaries around the world. Torah Fund allows them to excel in their studies and make the most of their potential in service to our people. Biyachad, together, we can have a strong finish to this year's campaign. To that end, I would like to invite our International Torah Fund Chair, who happens to be Barbara Ezring, our conference consultant, to say a few words of encouragement for us all. Barbara.
I'm so happy to be with you at your region conference. I'm Barbara Ezring, International Chair of Women's League for Conservative Judaism's Philanthropy, Torah Fund. What an amazing and challenging year of fundraising we're having. Our usual approaches to raising money have been tweaked. Very special volunteers followed unique protocols to go to JTS to sort, pack, and label Torah Fund pins. Many pins traveled to a variety of cities before they reached their destinations. And some pins are still on their way to their recipients. You developed virtual Torah Fund events that wowed. You introduced your members to students and graduates of all 5 institutions of higher Jewish learning that we support. You studied Torah, learned about foods and customs in the cities of our seminaries, heard beautiful music, visited museum exhibits, mixed drinks, and honored special people in your communities. Everyone had fun. But most important, Sisterhood Torah Fund chairs and vice presidents maintained relationships with our Torah Fund donors. Thank you so much. And thank you to your Region Torah Fund Vice President. You trained, organized, emailed, phoned, attended meetings, supported your sisterhoods, and created region-wide virtual events. It is always the right time to donate to Torah Fund. Your gifts to the Torah Fund General Campaign provide programming and scholarships for students who attend the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, Schechter Institutes in Jerusalem, Seminario Rabbinico Latino-Americano in Buenos Aires, and Zacharias Frankel College in Potsdam. Contributions to the special project, Creating New Spaces, will be used at Ziegler for the Women's League Institute on Gender Bias and Harassment, and at JTS for the Women's League Study Space in the new undergraduate residence hall. Plan for the future. Join the Torah Fund Legacy Society and ensure the future for the students of our institutions of higher Jewish learning with your bequest. We are so grateful for your creativity, your enthusiasm, and your patience during this challenging year. Toda Rabbah to each of you for your continued support and donations to Torah Fund. B'yachad, together, we guarantee Jewish continuity.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your leadership and guidance this past year during these very challenging times. There were so many hurdles to overcome, and Barbara, with the help of her team, confronted them with calmness, intelligence, and dedication. We are so very thankful for all the work you do on behalf of Torah Fund. Our students that we support with our Torah Fund dollars are eager to show their gratitude and appreciation of our efforts. They are the direct beneficiaries of what we do, so I thought it appropriate to hear from them directly. The following short video highlights the students, programs, and philosophy of our newest seminary, the Zacharias Frankel College in Germany.
Als ich mich dafür entschieden habe, Rabbinerin zu werden, standen mir die Türen von vielen Ausbildungsstätten offen. Der Grund, warum ich mich dann für das Zacharias Frankel Kolleg entschieden habe, ist, weil ich teilhaben wollte an diesem Projekt, ein neues Judentum zu denken innerhalb des Zentrums Europas.
For me, it came at the right time. I just moved to Berlin. Coming out of Israel and coming into Berlin, my Jewish identity, my Jewish practice became more and more relevant and more important. I started being in touch with people, and people were kind of asking me questions, and we were doing Shabbat services at my house. Yeah, I kind of started to feel a bit like a rabbi. And then I heard that they were opening the Zacharias Frankel College in Berlin, and I was loving Berlin. So everything fit together and I joined.
Das Wichtige an Masorti oder das Entscheidende ist, dass es wirklich halachisch fundiert ist, also dass ein großes Augenmerk auf das jüdische Religionsgesetz gelegt wird, aber dass es immer im Zusammenspiel tatsächlich mit den modernen Fragen auch betrachtet wird. Weltweit gibt es insgesamt 5 Masorti-Rabbiner-Seminare. Zacharias Frankel wurde 1854 der Gründungsdirektor vom Jüdisch-Theologischen Seminar in Breslau. Und aus Breslau sind dann sehr viele Impulse ausgegangen. Später ist es zur Gründung vom Jewish Theological Seminary in New York gekommen. Wir kooperieren mit der Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, die an der Westküste sitzt. Und es gibt in Buenos Aires in Argentinien noch das Seminario Rabbinico und dann natürlich in Israel das Schechter Institute, wozu das Schechter Rabbinical Seminary gehört.
Also das Zacharias Frankel College gibt all seinen Studenten die Möglichkeit, sich frei zu entfalten. Sie versuchen, die Tradition authentisch und intensiv zu leben, aber gleichzeitig an das moderne Leben anzupassen. Das schlägt sich vor allem in einer gewissen Toleranz nieder, dass wir alle Menschen willkommen heißen, auf alle Juden zugehen wollen. Das ist unser Leitmotto.
So I brought the Gebetbuch für die neue Synagoge in Berlin, Oranienburger. The emphasis on tradition, Hebrew, but also Talmud study. In a lot of seminaries, you get a very broad education of Jewish studies, but you don't get the opportunity to study Talmud so much. And I really wanted to focus on rabbinical texts and on Talmud, and you can do that at Zacharias.
¿Listo como lo hacías, la pausa esta? Para mí lo más importante es que somos un grupo muy internacional de estudiantes de todas las partes del mundo. Creo que no hay nadie que venga del mismo país. Y eso hace que nos enriquezcamos muchísimo más. La perspectiva que cada estudiante da desde su punto de vista, desde la comunidad a la que pertenece, desde el país del que viene y desde la diferente educación que ha tenido.
Ich bin auch jemand, der dort sehr gut hinpasst. Einmal natürlich, weil ich dort Freunde habe, die auch wie eine Familie in gewisser Form sind, aber auch, weil ich dort eine sehr gute Lerngruppe habe. Also Leute, mit denen ich gerne studiere. Wir helfen einander, wir verbringen viel Zeit miteinander.
Ich schätze das Studium in Berlin sehr, eben auch durch die kulturelle Vielfalt, die Berlin als Stadt mit sich bringt.
One of the great things about Berlin is that you have many Jewish communities and there are many different opportunities to find your niche somewhere.
So part of our 5-year learning curriculum is 1 year in Israel, in Jerusalem. We study at the conservative yeshiva in Jerusalem, and that's probably the most influential part of my studies, I'd say, for me.
Aussi, c'est bien d'être à la yeshiva parce que tu connais les autres rabbins du monde, surtout des États-Unis, mais tu connais aussi les rabbins qui viennent du Seminario de Buenos Aires, et aussi tu connais les gens qui viennent de Londres. Donc, c'était très enrichissant de connaître tous ces gens et de voir comment ils faisaient aussi.
Ich glaube, dass zukünftig Rabbiner und Rabbinerinnen in Deutschland viel mehr auch auf außergemeindlichen Ebenen arbeiten werden müssen. Das bezieht sich auf Studentengruppen, Schulunterricht, soziale Netzwerke. Das Gemeindeleben wird natürlich auch zukünftig wichtig sein. Aber ich denke, dass gerade auch wir im Frankel College wissen, dass der klassische Gemeindeberuf nicht das Einzige ist, was dem Rabbiner oder der Rabbinerin offen steht und von Interesse und Wichtigkeit sein wird.
I think at the time at the Frankel College, I've learned also to trust myself, that I have something to give to the world, and also not to trust myself too much. I think to keep asking questions.
Étudier ici à Berlin, au Zacharias Frankel, ça veut dire pour moi qu'on a une opportunité magnifique d'être au milieu de l'Europe, mais il faut être conscient que c'est à nous de faire notre propre chemin.
Wow. Were you not moved as much as I was when I saw that for the first time? These are the faces of the real people that you are helping with your Torah Fund donations. The students of all our seminaries are so enthusiastic, committed, and dedicated to their future roles as leaders in their communities. And now we know we can help.
I'm so happy to be with you
Wait.
at your region
Excuse me.
conference. I'm Barbara
Mark,
Ezring,
turn that off.
National Chair of Women's League for Conservative Judaism's Philanthropy, Torah
Mark,
Fund.
Turn that off, please.
What an amazing and challenging year of fundraising we're having.
Mark? Sorry, that should not have been good. Let's go back. Okay, so what I was saying was these were amazing students, and the students at all our seminaries are so enthusiastic, committed, and dedicated to their future roles as leaders in their communities. And now we know we can help them attain their goals through our generous support of Torah Fund. Now I'd like to highlight a number of challenges we've faced this year. We have a unique region because INR is comprised of sisterhoods from Canada as well as the United States. And surprise, surprise, though we have many things in common, we are different in several important aspects, especially when it comes to our differing federal tax laws. That's why we haven't yet found a way that Canadians can use a credit card to donate to the Torah Fund online via our Torah Fund website. Americans, on the other hand, have the distinct advantage that enables them to donate any amount online on the donate page of our Torah Fund website. Let me stop here and make sure everyone, whether Canadian or American, knows how to access our Torah Fund website. If you can't remember the address, jtsa.edu/Torah Fund, just Google Torah Fund and click the option that says Torah Fund Jewish Theological Seminary, not the Women's League one. You get to the main page and scroll down to the Torah Fund information. See on the right are boxed options to choose. If you're an American and wish to make a donation, you simply click on the donate box. Once there, you can make a straight donation or choose either of 2 e-cards to send out, or there's the option of a meaningful personal tribute letter mailed by the office in memory or in honor of someone for a minimum of $28 donation. All donations sent from this donate page will be credited to the donor's sisterhood, providing that information is entered on the page, and the donor's name will be recorded by the office. Everyone, Canadians, Americans, notice that this page also highlights all 5 of our Biachad General Campaign seminaries. Each are underlined, which means that these are direct links to their websites, where you can find a wealth of Jewish knowledge and meet their faculty and students. Now, if you click on the 4th box down, you arrive at Synagogue Sisterhoods, which when you scroll down, you can click on Find Resources or request student speakers, etc. Click on Find Resources to find all the Torah Fund forms and brochures. Please note, if you want to print anything from this page, you first click on the image, then go to the top right of the screen, click on Download, and then direct download, and only then will you be able to actually print or copy your image. Another box for Americans to choose on the website is for the new e-card platform, which was introduced this year and contains 5 beautiful card designs with more coming in the future. Starting at $5 per recipient, purchasers have the option of making an additional contribution of any amount to Torah Fund, and they can specify when they'd like the card to be sent out. For purchasers who indicate their sisterhood at the end of the campaign cycle, each sisterhood will be credited with the total revenue from this platform, but the names of the donors will not be recorded. If you have already done so, please try accessing. If you haven't already done so, please try accessing our user-friendly website. Take a virtual trip through all it has to offer. You will learn so much and will actually enjoy the experience. Let's get back to how Canadians donate to Torah Fund, if not on the website. Well, they have to send a check or cash to their sisterhood's Torah Fund chair. They can order Torah Fund tribute cards, which they can either mail themselves or have the chair do the mailing. Cards were another challenge this year for everybody. Because the JTS building had to be closed due to COVID, new cards could not be accessed to send out. But luckily, all INR Torah Fund chairs have been able to help each other and have shared their stocks of Torah Fund cards amongst themselves. The last update I received informed us that they have come up with a solution and are hoping to have the cards available in the very near future. The same JTS closure affected our Torah Fund pins. I'm sure you know that pins are a gift received for donations that are $180 or higher, and many donors have still not even received their Biachad pins this year. However, I was told this week that they have come up with a plan to get those pins and cards out very soon. Now, regarding credit card donations for U.S. donors, the Torah Fund office can no longer accept credit card donations that used to be written down and sent by the Torah Fund chairs on their accompanying lists of names, which we call the transmittal forms. Too many errors have occurred in transferring these numbers onto paper and then sending them by mail or email. And as we know, security is a huge concern these days. The only way to pay by credit card is either online, as we mentioned before, or the donor herself can call the Torah Fund office in New York, leave a message for Cheryl Moss Solomon to 212-678-8977 to call them back, and then they can give their information personally over the phone. Again, that's for U.S. donors only. I did encounter one advantage Canadians have over Americans. The office has told us that American sisterhoods should no longer submit an aggregate check. That's when one check came into the office along with names and addresses of all the donors, and the Torah Fund office was expected to record all the names and send the receipts to each donor. The office is now unable to process these names. Therefore, all American checks must be made out to Torah Fund when sent to the Torah Fund office. If a sisterhood has no alternative but to send one check representing a number of donors, then that total amount will be listed as coming from the sisterhood, and the sisterhood or synagogue will have to do the receipting. No individual names will be recorded. In contrast, Canadians can send an aggregate check because the Canadian Torah Fund affiliate called Jewish Theological Society has an accountant who is able to process all necessary tax receipts, whether received individually or as an aggregate check. The accountant also will accept over the phone a credit card donation if it's over $100, but please inform your Torah Fund chair or VP so that the proper transmittal form can accompany those funds that eventually get transferred to New York. Without that transmittal form, checks have actually gone missing until found after a thorough search. All the details I've spoken about are only there to help each of our sisterhoods do the best they can for Torah Fund. At the beginning of each year, as Torah Fund VP, I discuss with each Torah Fund chair what they think they can achieve for that year, and together we set their Torah Fund goal. As I have done in the past, I now want to proudly acknowledge the 11 sisterhoods in our region who met or exceeded their Torah Fund goals for the 2019-2020 Torah Fund campaign. Beth David Women, Beth Jacob Synagogue. Beth David Women is in Toronto, Beth Jacob Synagogue in Hamilton. Beth Tikva Women, Toronto. Beth Tzedek Sisterhood, Toronto. Congregation Or Shalom Sisterhood in London, Ontario. Shaarei Zedek Sisterhood in Montreal. Sisterhood of Congregation Beth Shalom Chever Shas, DeWitt. Temple Adath Yeshurun Sisterhood, Syracuse. Temple Beth El Sisterhood, Rochester. Temple Beth Joseph Sisterhood, Herkimer. And Women's Network of Temple Beth Tzedek, Williamsville, which is Buffalo. Mazel tov to all our sisterhoods who reached their goals last year. I must tell you, I have been in awe of the originality and creativity that has gone into so many of our Torah Fund programs, especially during these crazy times. Thank you to everyone who helped raise awareness of the importance of Torah Fund. This just in, the Torah Fund office has asked that all Torah Fund checks be sent into the office by May 17th because of the slow postal service and the extra burden of processing the funds remotely. Online donations will be accepted up to the end of our fiscal year, which is the end of June. There is so much more I could speak about, but because of time constraints, I'm just going to mention one more issue that is close to my heart. I'm talking about the Legacy Society. This is a planned giving initiative that's been around a long time, but was recently renamed. If the purpose of Torah Fund is important to you, if you understand the need to support our amazing students in our 5 conservative Masorti seminaries, if you want your support to continue even after you're gone, and if you want to impart your commitment to your family, joining the Legacy Society is your ticket to do so. All you do is simply allocate in your will any amount as a bequest to Torah Fund. It can be in the form of assets, a percentage of your estate, stocks, life insurance proceeds, or cash. Again, there is no correct amount. Any amount is appreciated. As the wife, as an estate planning lawyer, I've long since understood the importance of updating one's will about every 10 years. So I encourage you to please consider adding a bequest to Torah Fund in your next update, or you can simply add a simple amendment called a codicil to your will. Of course, your professional advisor would have to be consulted, but the Torah Fund office has developed all the proper wording needed for both Americans and Canadians to ensure the funds are allocated properly. All the details you need to know are on our website, or you're welcome to contact me for information. Once you've signed and sent in your declaration of intent form, and in recognition of your commitment to the future, you will receive a legacy charm which can be worn proudly with your Torah Fund pin, like mine. When you make a legacy gift, you will join a group of dedicated visionaries who value education and the future of the conservative movement. I hope I shed some light on how Torah Fund works in our region and why it is vital in ensuring that our legacy is passed down to future generations of conservative Jews. If you haven't already given your annual donation to Torah Fund, or if you've been inspired to give more, please be sure to contact your own Torah Fund chair to do so. I proudly pass on the torch to Linda Boxer, who will be your next Torah Fund VP, and wish her the best of luck in her work on your behalf. Thank you to everyone for your generous support of Torah Fund, and I wish you an exciting and prosperous Torah Fund campaign next year. B'hatzlacha and toda rabah.